On August 28, 1994, at approximately 10:30 a.m., Robert Yummy Sandifer left his house at 219 West 107th Place. It was said that he claimed to be on his way to the gas station on 111th and State, yet he had with him a 9mm pistol, so if in fact he was actually ever going to the gas station is debatable. At approximately 6:30 p.m., Yummy walked up to a group of young men standing at 10758 South Perry. Yummy was a BD, a black disciple. The 11-year-old had BD Trey tattooed on his right forearm. It is alleged that Yummy was told to kill members of the rival gang, the Gangster Disciples, and that the young men he approached standing on the corner were members of that gang. And according to Britton, Yummy pulled out the 9mm. Britton ran off but was shot 2 times, once in the stomach and once in the spinal cord. Britton did not die but had to relearn how to walk. Barely 2 hours later, and literally around the corner from the first shooting, Siobhan Dean was returning from walking a friend home. Dean was 30 feet away from her door. Allegedly, Yummy came around the corner, aimlessly shooting into a crowd of kids playing football on the street. Sammy Say, 16, was grazed in the leg and shot in the hand. Witnesses say that Yummy shot Say. Dean was struck in the head. She later died as a result of her injuries. By midnight, the Chicago Police Department, working with FBI agents that were already in the area due to gang narcotic activities, began to search for Yummy. 20 to 30 officers were involved. What? Midnight? How is it possible for a shooting to occur in a residential neighborhood and there not be any police presence barely 2 hours later? It could have not been any police presence because witnesses state that Yummy came around the corner shooting. From Yummy's house to the first shooting, it's a 5-minute walk. From the first shooting to the second shooting, it's only a 3-minute walk. And from the second shooting back to Yummy's house, it's only a 2-minute walk. That means Yummy never left the area after the first shooting. The police were en route back to the station to get a picture of Sandifer when they found out about the second shooting, which was literally around the corner from the first shooting. How? No detective can be bothered to canvass the neighborhood and ask other children, people, neighbors how he looked or where he lived. And where were the FBI agents that were already in the area based on the gang narcotic activities? How come they didn't start looking for him? By 22 months, Robert Yummy Sandifer was first connected with authorities. He was admitted to Jackson Park Hospital covered in scratches and bruises. A year later, Yummy was found home alone with his siblings, who were 5 years and 3 years old. DCFS intervened, but the Department of Children and Family Services did not intervene until Lorena Sandifer, Yummy's mom, allowed Victor, Yummy's older brother, to go blind from not treating an eye condition. They did not intervene until after her daughter went to emergency with 2nd and 3rd degree burns on her genitals from being held over the radiator. In a note to the juvenile court, a psychiatrist noted that Lorena could not take care of herself, and especially not her 5 kids. A concurrent report stated Lorena blamed Robert Atkins, Yummy's father, for the cigarette burns and markings from being hit with an extension cord and the bruises all over his neck and torso. But Robert Atkins was in prison during the time of Yummy's injuries. Lorena later retracted that claim. Lorena Sandifer is quoted as saying they should have put him away and given him therapy when he started taking cars. But she offers no suggestions as to how she could have been a better parent, nor does she take any responsibility whatsoever. The examiner recommended not placing Yummy and his siblings in the care of the grandmother due to it not being a nurturing environment. Despite that report, DCFS sent Robert and his 3 siblings to the maternal grandmother's, Janie Fields' house anyway. According to a Cook County probation officer, young women were working as prostitutes from the grandmother's house. Lorena Sandifer had been arrested 41 times, mostly for prostitution. The neighborhood filed a petition to force Yummy's grandmother and family out of the house. The petition was unsuccessful. At 8, he was arrested for the first time. By 9, he was prosecuted for attempted robbery in January of 1993. By April of 1993, he was back in court for stealing a jacket, yet released when the victim could not ID him. In May of 1993, he was charged with attempted robbery, but the case was dropped when a key witness failed to appear in court. In June of 1993, he was charged in 2 cases, auto theft and arson. One case was dropped, the other he pled guilty to. Along with his January robbery charge, he was sentenced to 2 years probation in February of 1994. He was 10. He was committed to the Lawrence Hall Youth Services Maryville Academy for Abused and Neglected Children in early 1994, and he just simply ran away. In total, Yummy was charged with 23 felonies and 5 misdemeanors. He was put in a juvenile facility in June of 1994. A DCFS caseworker recommended to keep Yummy in the detention center until he could be transferred to an out-of-town facility. But the judge was unwilling to imprison Yummy with older youths, and he was released to the custody of his grandmother, overruling another judge's order barring DCFS from placing Yummy at the house with his grandmother. Yummy stayed on the run for 3 days. He was shuttled between safe houses and abandoned buildings with a heavy police presence in his neighborhood and reporters everywhere. This 11-year-old was able to elude seasoned detectives. By Wednesday night, he asked the neighbor to call his grandmother again so he could turn himself in. He also asked that neighbor if she could say a prayer with him. When the neighbor returned from the call, Yummy was gone. He had left with his fellow Black Disciple gang members, brothers Derek and Craig Hardaway, 14 and 16 respectively, who had promised to help Yummy get out of town. Instead, they drove him to a railroad underpass. Derek looked out while Craig shot him twice in the head. Around 7 p.m., Craig and Derek Hardaway stopped by Craig's girlfriend's house and returned a call to a man named Kenny. Kenny was allegedly the leader of the BD set. Upon meeting with Kenny, he told Craig that Yummy needed to be gotten rid of, and he handed him a .25 caliber gun. Yummy knew too much, and if he was caught, high-ranking members of the BDs would go to jail. After being informed that the Hardaway brothers were the last to see Yummy alive, the police went to talk to the Hardaways. When the police arrived at the house, Derek was sleeping and Craig was out. The police explained that they needed to talk to Derek. Derek was allowed to accompany the officers to the station without his father, who opted to wait for Craig to get home. Between 1992 and 1994, Derek Hardaway had been arrested 19 times. 7 times Hardaway was in juvenile court with an appointed counsel. Hardaway had also violated his supervision. The excuse given as to why Yummy was never placed in any facility for any given amount of time is that he was too young. Yet Derek Hardaway was 14 years old, 3 years older than Yummy. Why wasn't he ever taken off the streets? 25 years later, this story is no less heart-wrenching. 3 troubled kids endangered an entire community with no interference from law enforcement, child protection agencies, or the court system. 1 innocent victim died. 1 hunter became the prey. And 2 boys were transformed into men overnight.
I want to dedicate this one to Robert, Yummy Sandifer, and all other little young niggas that's in a rush to be gangsters.